Welcome to the Ask Faleskini podcast with a guest. I'm proud to present Christopher Allan Ellingsworth. Christopher is the founder of a nonprofit, the Foundation of a New World. Christopher, please tell us more about yourself. What is your story?
Thank you, and thanks for having me too. Um, myself, I am, like you said, I'm the founder of a nonprofit, the Foundation of New World. I have started this nonprofit based on the concept that the majority of the world, or the problems that we're having in the world today, are based around one common denominator, and that's our financial system. And of course, the purpose of the nonprofit is to reveal the problems that we're having with our financial system itself, and what I believe is a solution to these problems that solves our problems in multiple different ways, and even provides a sense of fair trade like we've never really seen before.
Thank you. Do you believe that financial system is the problem, or that financial system is just the consequence of all the problems that we are experiencing as a society?
I think a little bit of both. You have both in play. I think the problems that I would really refer to that our financial system has is, let's just say there's two main problems. First, it's an arbitrary value when it comes to, let's just say if you're doing off of a dollar or the euro or the pound or even Bitcoin, there's an arbitrariness aspect to it. And that's basically led us to be where we are today, where the average person gets paid based off of this idea of cost of living, how much you need to get by. So if you're living this week or paycheck to paycheck weekly existence, well, a lot of that has to do with because you're getting paid based off of enough to live, off of cost of living. So one of the things that I've done with the Foundation of New World is actually design this concept currency, and it's called the hour. So the first real problem there that's trying to address is from an arbitrary dollar to how much dollars should a person be paid per hour to an hour. Well, that's a lot less arbitrary. You can still argue more or less based off of your skill set and so on, but you have a true measurable starting point, which would be an hour for an hour's time worked. That would be with the arbitrariness of it. And that has a lot to do with exploitation. When it comes to people in general, let's say those who would find themselves living not quite making it, whether it's below the poverty line or even above the poverty line. Like a lot of people, they live well above the poverty line, but they're never quite done. They're always working, they're always going, of course, week to week. And a lot of that has to do with, that cost of living aspect of it. So on this end of it, what I've done, of course, is design the hour itself to be based around the actual measurable time that someone puts into something. So it reflects a real and true measurable value of someone's life, which is what it's taking from you. That's the first aspect. I think the other aspect of your question was as far as what's wrong with our currency itself that's driving a lot of these problems, as opposed to I think your wording was how we use the currency. Was that correct?
Not the currency, but how we use the system.
The system itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other end of it was the GDP aspect of the system.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the GDP aspect of our economic system, I'm sure a lot of people understand it, but for those who don't really understand it, the GDP stands for gross domestic product. And it's a measuring system that we're using to value the health of a country's currency. And it can help to value a country's currency altogether. So with a GDP system, you have to produce more gross domestic product each and every year to show that your currency is healthy and valuable in the world market. If you do not, then of course it can help to devalue your currency, causing inflation and everything else. So your government, your leaders, the people who have the power and authority to make changes, their big influences are going to be surrounded by helping companies produce more, not less. So let's just say, for example, if a company was to do something like make a battery that lasted 10 times as long, well, how does that help your GDP? It really doesn't. This is across the board. Things that would be more effective, longer lasting, products that lasted longer, didn't break down as fast. All these types of things would actually hurt a nation's GDP because they're not selling as much. A lot of people might have the company's viewpoint of it, and the company wants to make money. But when it comes to your government leaders, their motivations are going to be, of course, making sure their GDP is staying high and constant, as opposed to anything that might threaten it. So what you see is that from the top of our society down, there's a lack of motivation to do things better. Right now, with pollution and of course climate change, and all the pollutants that we put out there that really have a bad effect on our environment. Excuse me, sorry. With all that going on, we are still dependent on a lot of our fossil fuel technology, and a big part of that dependence isn't because that we don't have the ability to get around it. It's our willingness to get around it. It's our willingness to do something different. And we are dependent not just on these things for energy, we are dependent on these things for selling them. If you were to produce right here and right now, if you produced an engine that powered itself, I mean, I know they say it's impossible, but let's just say hypothetically, if you did, it would be a disaster for our global economic system. Um, let's just say within the year, you produce enough of these engines for half the people in the world to have an engine that powered its own, that could power a car without being either fueled or recharged at a charging station, or it could power someone's house without need of an alternate, another power source feeding it. It powered itself, or it was powered in a house or a car. If you produce this engine, you are looking at this drastic reduction in GDP. And that's a huge loss for countries across the world, not just any one country in particular. So when you look at that aspect of our economic system, it's not surprising that we're not doing better. And it's really across the board, whether it's healthcare, just cost of goods in general, the longevity of the producing or the products that we make on a day-to-day basis. It's been going down as opposed to going up. And everyone just wants to blame companies, saying the companies are greedy. Well, the people who have the power to regulate that don't, because they need that GDP.
Okay, but GDP is just a measurement, and it is up to the government how they use it. And as far as I agree with you that GDP has a lot of shortcomings, it has also a lot of advantages. GDP is basically the combined number of all the invoices, to simplify it, the combined number, or all the invoices that everyone in the economy has issued in a certain time period, just combined. So basically, it tells us nothing about productivity, because if companies increase prices with the same productivity, GDP will inevitably go up. And GDP is an aggregate. It's not something that would give us any specific data, or that would give us data on a structure, or you addressed ecological issues. GDP is not relying on good structure, because it's an aggregate data. So it's really, for myself as a macroeconomist, it's just one of the data that you have to follow. However, if you focus on optimizing just GDP and not optimizing the structure of your economy, that is a huge loss for everyone. And I don't think GDP is a problem. The problem is that people or governments optimize everything around GDP, and they do not care about the structure. And I don't think that the world economy would fall apart if you would have a free energy, or engine that does not consume outside energy. But the huge implication could be that the GDP would grow even more because energy is just part of the GDP. I do believe that in US it's about 6 to 8%, not even more. So arguing that engine that does not consume any outside energy and that you need to pay would significantly influence the GDP. I don't think that this argument stands. And people and companies would have available cash flow that they could spend on other things. For example, developing, maybe improving social economics in the environment.
Well, I've always agreed on that. You know, you take away people's having to spend money on one thing and you put it towards another, they will spend money on another thing. One aspect I do disagree with is people are less likely to spend themselves in a debt for things they do not absolutely need at the time. I think that's one of the things that's going on in our world. We are extremely credit dependent. And I believe one aspect of that is we need to produce more constantly. So the only way you're going to produce more and be able to buy more is to extend more and more lines of credit. And it's a lot easier to do that.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that, especially coming from a background where I'm a treasurer and I always recommend zero or no leverage. And everyone is able to either not start leveraging themselves or not start leveraging their company. But it takes sustainable growth to do so. So people are not depending on credit. Even I don't believe that states or governments are depending on credit. It's just so much easier. So it's like people are addicted to drugs. For me, credit is just a drug. You use something that you will be sorry that you did in the future. And a lot of government officials and also C-level executive, they do believe that they can get away with the murder. And a lot of people believe that they can get away with using drugs and that nobody will know and that they can stop every day or any day. And that is the biggest problem of the credit, because everyone or most of the people can get out of debt, but it will demand the change of a lifestyle. And people are not ready to change lifestyle. And this is the challenge, I believe, in this economy. Not getting out of debt is just if everyone is aware that the easiest way to make money in US right now, and the most millionaires made money with leveraged property purchases. And that is why everyone would like to be leveraged. And okay, I have a credit card that enables me, I don't know, 50,000 limit on that card. And then I can just go and spend money I don't have because it's available to me. So it's not about the system, it's about the person doing it. And
I would disagree completely with that. Like, okay, so yes, there are people who are irresponsible, but how are you going to say in a system that is completely based around increased growth that it's only the person's fault, that it has nothing to do with the system, it has nothing to do with those on a higher power?
I wouldn't go into the fault.
It completely benefits them.
I would say that people are even incentivized to use credit, and I'm all agree with that. So people are heavily incentivized to use credit.
Yeah, I would say when it comes to credit, they either grade your credit worthiness on your debt. Like if you look at through just Credit Karma, if you look up Credit Karma and how they rank things, the number of credit accounts that you have open increases your ranking. I mean, I think the standard they wanted.
Let's be realistic. If you don't intend to use your credit in the future, you don't need credit rating. So all
I agree with you completely. But
so if you have
buy
savings,
a house, you're going to need credit. Most
no,
people
no, you don't need the credit. You can buy a house cash straight. Nobody will give you that.
Have you seen the price of houses around here?
Yes.
I don't know what the prices
have
are
you
there.
Seen other neighborhoods? Have you seen what are the prices of house just like 2000 or 200 miles from your area. It's
Well, the
yeah,
reason
it's
they're
just
lower
up
is
to you how you want to live your life. And of course, it's easier to stay where you are now and just purchase $1 million house or $2 million house and purchase $100,000 car and not drive 10 years old Camry. It's up to you. So it's not that it's impossible. It's a decision-based system, and if you make bad decisions, you get sort of wrong results, and then you have problem with all the credits, and you're stuck in a rat race because you need to have a good job to pay off the credit, else you will lose your house, else you will lose your car, and so on. But if you start with
okay. Wait. I have to try to hit back on a point before we get too far past it and
yes, please.
forget. You had mentioned the housing and the cost of housing. Sure, I can go out. I can actually go to Alaska, live out in the middle of nowhere, and just build a house. I don't even need to buy land. I can just
Yes.
have it. The problem is that that's not where the jobs are. That's not where the life is. It's not where, you know, people are. Um, that's the reason that it's so cheap. That's the reason that they are giving it away for nothing. So when you allow up houses in the areas where people are just to keep going up and up and up and up, well, people are going to need money. And in our economy, they're going to need way more money than they're capable of even making. Um, and especially with, like you said, there's so many people who become billionaires or millionaires and bigger simply by leveraging houses. Well, yeah, they're able to do that because once you have the money to own so many houses, well, guess what? You can charge at a premium rate for those houses. And of course, people are going to be so far in debt just paying for that rent monthly. They're never going to be able to afford to save up enough to get anywhere close to buying a house or that 10 or 20% down that you need to even get a house. So, I
Okay.
mean, the old argument of you can just move somewhere else, it's really not a good argument because it's kind of justifying, okay, we're going to buy up all the land around the city where your jobs are. We're going to buy it all up. We're going to charge it to you at a premium and tell you that, well, it's your fault because you didn't want to move, 300 miles away from the city and then drive back and forth 300 miles a
You
day.
don't need to drive. It's really simple. The companies will have no workers if the prices go up. Until they have workers, then they'll do that. But if you have a special skill, you can go to Alaska. You said, okay, go there. You can chop wood there, and people use that as building material, and you can sell it. There's so many opportunities, but
So
if
the
you want,
question is,
can I please finish? If you
sorry,
want to have like the easiest job you can get, if you want to work in a Starbucks, of course, there is no Starbucks in a mountainous area somewhere, and you cannot work there. But there are other opportunities there. Maybe you can hunt your own food. Maybe you don't need anyone else. Maybe that is the problem. Everyone is in this rat race, and they believe that okay, jobs are here. Yes, but the paychecks are also higher there. And it's up to you to optimize whether you're going to want to be in New York, where the paychecks are probably 50% or more higher than the rest of the US. And it's up to you whether you want to move to New York and you want to pay 2 million for a house. Of course, there's a premium, but also the paychecks have premium there. So
in the past 5 years, the cost of housing near every major U.S. city, I'm not talking about New York and L.A. and Miami, I'm talking about every city in the country, the cost of housing is doubled, tripled, or more in the past 5 years.
yes,
Now, then, as far as the argument of, oh, well, when they can't have workers because if workers can't afford to live, well, what's happening to the workers is they can't afford to live alone, so they're all crowding together into roommates, or they're just pushing these workers to their limits. And that's what you're going to have an entire society of people who are pushed to their absolute limit on what they can afford to live around any city. And if everyone goes out to the country, well, guess what? It's going to turn into another city. You're going to get some rich investor who comes in, buy up all the housing, and then charge it all at a premium. And around we go and keep on going with the same circle, where really the only people suffering are those at the bottom. And that is what I've actually designed this economic system around, and this nonprofit, the Foundation of New World. And it's not about preventing people from making money or being greedy. It's about curbing that. It is about showing the reality of what things cost to prevent it from getting to a point where people are pushed to their absolute limit just to survive, or where people are pushed to a point where, like, literally an entire city of the common people in an entire city would have to leave altogether in a mass exodus before people, landlords, and whatever, decide they want to lower the cost of their buildings. Like, they would have to go to those crazy type limits in order to do that. It's not ideal. It's easy to say that when you're not living under someone's financial thumb in this way. When you are living under someone's financial thumb, it's extremely difficult. When you barely have enough money to get by another week, it's not easy to say, I'm just going to up and move somewhere else where it's cheaper, where I don't know anyone, where I don't have any place to stay, where I don't have enough money to even get there, let alone
It's all about
try to
comfort zone.
get there
I
in
agree
another place.
100% with you.
It's a difficult situation, and I don't disagree in the freedom to do what you want, to charge what you want. What I disagree with is our deceit in the process. So I built a system that's designed to reveal the truth, so there is no deceit, and in doing so, it's designed to help keep
But
things relative.
okay, do you believe that system without deceit is possible?
Yes, that's what I've designed.
Okay. Um, are people involved in this system?
Yes,
How can then be the system without flaws?
you would have to have auditors much in the same way you do now. With right now, you have tax auditors. They just go through, if you're not paying taxes to the government, they audit, and of course they will prosecute if you're committing tax fraud. In
Okay.
this case, you would have auditors who would, of course, audit that you're telling the truth on what your prices are.
Okay. And you believe that there will be no corruption, that nobody will pay the auditor to have their prices high, and no auditor will be paid to just close down the company.
I'm sure you could always have some level of that.
So
Well, there's a lot to that point though you're making. One aspect right now is that people, as far as like whistleblowers, the whole concept of a person becoming a whistleblower right now, you have that very few and far between. And the reason for that is that you find that a lot of people are very job dependent, right? We're already established people are living in a paycheck to paycheck existence. Even those who aren't, they're only so far away from, if they were fired today and not able to gain new employment, they would likely lose their home within 3 to 6 months. That's fairly typical. So when you have people who are living like that, let's say you work in a pharmaceutical company, and that pharmaceutical company has the cure to whatever, and it's cheap. It's so or so cost efficient that you could have it for nothing, and that they could release it any day, but they don't. Would you blow the whistle if you had spent 8 years to get your degree? That degree is only good for working in pharmaceutical companies such as one you're working for, and if you blow the whistle, you'll likely never work for one of these companies again. Are you likely to blow that whistle? Well, right now the answer is no. And it holds true. A lot of people aren't willing to blow a whistle in a situation like that because they're going to lose their livelihood. They're going to lose everything that is, of course, important to them, their education, everything. They're not going to be able to use it in work.
let's be realistic. Of course, they will not want to lose what they have because their whole existence is materialistic. They have a house they cannot afford. You said they will lose a house if they don't make money in 3 to 6 months. Of course, okay. So you have over leveraged yourself for this house. And your shitty degree does not pay something that you could have a lot of savings. So it just keeps you above the poverty line, or even somewhere in between the poverty line and 2 million in debt for your house. So you're basically 2 million in debt, and you have a house that someone can take away from you in 6 months if you don't pay. So there are the whole, let's say, series of wrong decision in the past that you have to pay off. And another thing, even if you wouldn't have that and you would own your house straight, there's also the factor that is extremely important is this, let's say, prestige that your job title brings, and you would lose that, and then you would have to be an Uber driver for a while or something like that. And of course, people do not want that, because if I'm a head of development institute of some medical research company, it's my title is more important than being honest about things. And that is just the way the society are. Do you think that this same society will change when you put them in a different system? Do you think that there's going to be less crime? Do you think that there's going to be, that people will become honest just because there will be a different system?
Yes. You will see an increase in honesty. Okay, so right now, as far as that question goes,
what will be the initiative for increase in honesty? That is my question.
okay, right now we've lived in a dog eat dog world when it comes to financial matters our entire lives. Right? If you want to get ahead, I mean, you pretty much have to do what everybody else is doing and find a way to almost rip off your customer if you have to. That's the world that we've been brought up in, and the system we've been brought up in. We've been brought up in a system where we're struggling so hard to get anywhere. If you really want to actually have a decent life, you're going to need large sums of money, right? And hey, most governments don't really seem to care how you're getting it as long as you fall within their rules and their guidelines. So if you actually came up in a system where people weren't pushed to their limits and didn't spend their lives like this, if people didn't have to make large sums of money just to try to get ahead, even like the slightest bit, if you were brought up in a different system like this, where the average person actually had a decent life, didn't have to work a 9 to 5 until they're 70 years old or whatever, then you would see a drastic difference in how society acted, how we acted. You would see a lot less theft and a lot less of these types of crimes when you had a system where the average person just wasn't struggling week to week to week to week in this hopeless existence. And like you said, like a lot of these, a lot of your education systems, you get this degree, you end up with a lot of debt for it, and then of course you're still in debt, just working your 9 to 5, whatever it is, for a large period, a large portion of your life. So right now in the system, the way we have it, even those people that do get that nice degree, a lot of them, it's fairly, I suppose you could say, hopeless, that they're just going to be working and working and working and working and working this endless monotonous routine.
Okay, but
so yeah, you would see a difference just based on that.
okay, I don't believe that, because I never saw a society where this would be the case. And
Well,
is there a society that you know of that there's a case that there's a lower crime because they don't have to work that hard?
I'm sure you could find examples of that. I'm sure if you looked within our countries today, you would find that countries with higher poverty rates would have higher crime rates, and countries with lower poverty rates would have lower crime rates. I mean, that's something you could look up statistically. You could probably Google it on your phone right now. You'd find there are correlations there. People who are comfortable in their lives aren't willing to risk going to jail for piddly stuff. They're not wanting to go and commit petty theft if they have a nice life. That's fairly common behavior.
Maybe. I would like to address another thing, like working 9 to 5 till you're dead. On farm, every farmer's destiny is to die in the field, and there's no real retirement on the farm. You work until you die. So why would people in the city be different, and why would they just be entitled to retire?
I don't think anyone's entitled to anything. I think if we're entitled to one thing, and that's the only thing I would try to give to people, would be a fair deal. Now, in the old days, yeah, a farmer's going to work the farm until, he gets old and passes on and his sons take over or whatever. Nowadays, we have technology that farmer, just his family working that field, they're producing. I mean, I have no idea. It's a lot. It doesn't take a lot of people to actually work a farm anymore. We have so much, we have so many inventions, so much technology that you can get a lot of work out of that farm. So
It,
as far as just the stuff that you need, the
it's
food
still
that you eat from
physically
that farm.
extremely demanding, I can tell, because I manage a farm, and everything is automatic, but physically most of the city folks could never do it.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Um,
I've done a lot of hard work myself. I know how a lot of people really couldn't do that. But no, I think the concept I'm trying to talk about is the amount of production that we have nowadays. And with our system the way it is, doesn't matter how much we produce, they're still going to give us enough to get by.
yes.
That's the concept of our pay, the concept of cost of living, the concept of raising the price of housing, lowering the pay rates, or don't lower the pay rates, just raise the cost of housing some more until people are just working to get by week after week after week. And that's the society that we have. I would like to bring up as far
But
as
is that the system, or is that someone exploiting the system
it's both.
in this
It's
way?
both.
I don't think there's inherently something wrong with the system that we have.
Well, I mean, I was addressing the arbitrariness of our money earlier, in that we are paid based off of cost of living. If I go to any other part of the world, I will be paid based off of cost of living first and foremost for my job. I know my job. I mean, I'm a union iron worker. I know I can take that skill and I can go to different cities around this country, and there's already exactly a statement of how much I will make there, and it's based off of how much you're going to need to live there. That's the entire basis of it. And ours is supposed to be a good pay rate and so on and so forth, but it is based on how much we need to get by. That's what it's based on, and everyone else's is as well, unless you're getting paid differently. I would say if you're owning your own business or you're getting paid as a business yourself, I don't know, but you will of course get more money that way. But for the average worker, the average hourly or even salary worker, they're getting paid first and foremost based off cost of living. So you're seeing that we are stuck in this loop, and a lot of it has to do with the concepts of currency itself, which is why, like I said, I changed the first aspect of the concept that I changed
But
is that
I
that
don't
measurement.
see relation with monetary policy with the price of the work. Can you elaborate on correlation of the monetary policy and the price of work?
I'm not sure I understand your question there. Like
So
talking about the concept of cost of living.
yes, how does that imply that the dollar currency it has somehow inherited the cost of living? The cost of living is a concept that people are willing to accept, and of course, all the people that own companies, they're because the profit is the residual of the after the cost that you pay. Why would you pay people more if your profit is then less? And if the people are willing to work for that money, why would you pay them less or more?
I guess that's the problem. What is that money worth? What is the mental image of that money? And right now, the mental image of that money is just money. Let's just say you're the business owner and you have a bunch of employees working for you. At the end of the day, you make $1 million. You're going to go home and you're going to tell yourself, I made $1 million today. Now, let's just say for a second that you switch that to the hour. Let's say at the end of the day, you bring home 80,000 hours.
Yes.
That's not money that you made. You're not, unless you're printing money, you're not really making money. You're exchanging it. You're exchanging services for someone else's money, which is their time. You have taken 80,000 hours worth of time that day. You didn't make $1 million. You took $1 million. You
Okay, but we have a problem here
the
because
labor of people.
the production is only 20% of the GDP, and 80% is probably financial services. how will you value financial services?
Honestly, I wouldn't give them much value at all. Being completely honest, as a personal perspective on how I would value financial services. And a reason for that, if you look at, let's say, the bubble, the 2008, 2009 bubble here in the United States, what was that based on? It was based on a bunch of money that they're making out of thin air that disappears as quickly. You're creating this product that doesn't even really exist. It's just a CDO or this or that. You're creating that you're gambling on what the housing market is going to do. You're saying, okay, the housing market is going to be good. We put money into it, it'll be better. You're creating just this arbitrary, I don't know, money. It just disappears. I mean, you think about it.
Yeah,
when it bursts, what happened to the money?
The money does not disappear. The money goes to money heaven, they say. And
I mean, you got to think if the stock market goes down,
yes,
what, all of our money is just gone? It's
a
financial service that does what for us? What does it really provide for us?
Yeah, but it's the same if the, let's say, the chicken price goes down, chicken meat price goes down. It's the same. And it's the same with every bubble is the same. If the corn goes down, right now the corn price is dropping. I don't know if you noticed, because right now, if the company has purchased corn for $100 per unit and is now able to sell it for $60, they're down $40 per unit. And where did the money go? Money heaven. And everything can be speculation, or is demand and supply. And this is huge problem, because with your hours, the same can help, come above with your hours. And I don't know, I'm a carpenter, so one of my hours, and because you work with iron and there are less people skilled in your job, so at one time maybe I will have to work 5 hours for one of your hours if I will need, for example, a welder, and I will work 5 hours so that I can afford one of your hours. But maybe there comes like 50 new welders in town, and then the price drops and they need more carpenters because new houses need to be put up. So then my hour will be worth the same as a welder's hour. And then maybe there will be a huge shortage of houses. So my hour will be worth 5 times the welder's hour. But when there's enough houses, and the next house I will build, my hour could be again worth 20% of the welder's hour. And that is
you have you're kind of arguing the same concept of, the supply and demand concept. Yes. That something is worth less or more because you have more of it or you have less of it. Now let's just say with something that is a rarity, that works. Mm-hmm. With something that, like I said, is rarity, it works. With our modern society, it doesn't work. It just allows exploitation in itself. And the reason I say this is because we have the ability to produce what we want. We are using supply and demand to jack up the prices where we want to. There's them using the diamond mines where they buy up all the diamonds and they hold the diamonds to pretend that there's a supply crunch because they don't want to flood the market with diamonds we're
producing bottlenecks in order to profit.
Well, I mean, you got to look at the same with wood. When COVID hit, I know here in the United States, a lot of people went and they were staying home. So they wanted to do all these projects at home. The price of wood went up because there's nobody producing it. Well, you can look up articles where the companies flat out say that, they have slowed the production of wood because they didn't want to flood the market, which would drive the prices back down to what it was just a couple of years before, or the year before COVID. They don't want to do that. So the problem here is that when you're basing your entire economic system on supply and demand, you're allowing the richest among us to control the economic system with supply and demand. They have the money to control. They have the power to control that. So you're just allowing them to have their way. That's all you're doing. You're not really getting a true value. You're not helping society in any way. All you're doing is making the rich richer, allowing them to do what they like. And anyone like, let's say if I wanted to go start my own lumber company, I would not be big enough to make the type of dent that would even be able to lower it.
Okay.
And instead I would probably
but
have
why
to
would you lower it if you can make more money? And another thing, do you think that um, central planning, like it was executed in Russia, is more efficient than bottlenecks and all these supply problems that are inflicted by people that own capital?
Wait, you had said something that happened in Russia. I didn't quite understand you on that.
What you said is that, for example, timber should be distributed equally, and companies should not stop producing in order to increase price and so on. That is exactly what Russia has tried with central planning. That was already tested in the past and it failed. So why would your system be more efficient than the system of Soviet Union at that time?
Okay. Okay. As far as what my system is designed to do, my system is designed to show the actual cost of a product. So with wood, between the cost of the people going out and harvesting the trees, to shipping the logs to the lumber mills where they cut them up, to distributing it to all the stores where they sell it, the system is designed to show the actual cost of that product.
But
not your supply and demand, not what you think the cost is, not what you hope it is, not, well, I only have this much wood in store, I'm not going to put any more in store, so I'm going to make it look like there's less.
Yes, but
that's not what it's designed to show. It's just designed to show the actual
problem
cost.
The big problem, what you're explaining, is possible just in one point in time, because the price of oil fluctuates. The
cost of it does not, though. The cost to pay those workers to go out and get the oil, to go out and drill it, the cost of them to refine it and ship it and everything, the cost of paying those people remains the same. No. So this system is designed to show,
because there is so many drills and different position, and there is so much the storage, it's different, and sometimes it's easier to drill a hole, and sometimes it's just a nightmare to drill a hole, and you need
and they have an average that's not going to go
average is a point in time for the past time. So what you're saying is you could calculate the average cost for last year, for example. That is how the system worked in ex-Yugoslavia. And then you have a problem because you have inflation and everything is messed up. And they did that, but everything was based on the costs. However, these costs are calculated for the last years. And you have a problem because so many things change. Because
if your costs were to go up this year, then your price could go up this year. You wouldn't have to base it on last year's. If your cost is actually going up, that would be a reason for the cost. Now then, I did not say, wait, I did not say the price has to be exactly the cost at all times. If you read the system if you gone to the website and read about the system, I did not say the price has to be the cost. What I said is the price has to be listed next to the cost. The reason for that is to keep the greed aspect from getting out of hand. So if you want to charge $3 for something that costs $2 or whatever, people can see that. They can see that, and they can help keep it within a certain limit, within what their tolerance is for people trying to make more money off of it. So if that product costs $2 and they're trying to sell it for $800, well, people can see what is actually happening. If today the cost is $2 and the price is $4, and then tomorrow the cost is $2 and the price is $5, people see that the price went up and it had nothing to do with the cost going up. Yeah, people can see that. That is what the system is designed to show. And in doing so, it is actually designed to help keep us from being a job dependent society. And as far as the climate goes, I briefly mentioned this, the real two big aspects of the climate change and the environmental destruction that's going on right now have to do with our GDP dependency and our job dependency. And with the job dependency aspect, we're never going to be away from job dependency if we are allowing our people to be exploited so that other people can be, heavy-handed and greedy. And as far as job dependency goes, if we're job dependent, we are not going to get away from things that are destructive. If we could produce a product, if I produced a product with my product, whatever it was, if it's computer or anything, my product, if it lasts twice as long, I sell twice or half of them. If it lasts 5 times as long, I sell a fifth of them. Well, guess what? My employees, my job, I'm not going to have it as long. So that's a fear. And when you're looking at society as a whole, you're not going to want to encourage that type of behavior. Like I said before about the conflict of interest with our government, they're not going to want to take steps that might threaten people's jobs. That would be bad. You would be a bad president if you turned around and you had this huge unemployment rate. You had this huge loss in your GDP because you did something that actually influenced the market to make them produce things better. One example of actual historical things that went on with the light bulb, and I'm sure a lot of people have heard this story, or you could Google it, you can pull it up. But between the thing is the 1920s, 1930s, large groups of companies that produced light bulbs, they had gotten together and they basically created their own system where if a company had made a light bulb that did not last, or no, if a company made a light bulb that lasted too long, they would fine that company. So these companies, not trying to save money, but actually using their engineers to make sure their light bulbs did not last past a certain amount of hours, were paying their engineers to design these light bulbs down and not up.
It's
Otherwise, they
called
get trouble.
planned obsolescence.
Yes. So with that basic concept, and that's a historical fact, you can look it up. It's what they did, the light bulb companies. If you actually took and reversed that, that would be bad for our system. If you were to, let's say, as the
I don't agree that. I can't agree with that. I do believe that the whole system would profit if we would have reliable products without so fast obsolescence, because then we could do things that add more value.
I agree too, but it's not been happening. Our governments are not passing legislation like the light bulb example where you
management of existing system. That is not a systematic flow. That is not the problem. That is because the different institutions do not work, and you still have all these monopolies and oligopols and all this stuff because the system is not efficient enough, and the people that are entrusted to make system more efficient do not do their work. However, I don't think that there's an inherited flaw of the existing system that makes that happen.
2 questions to that very point. One, does the GDP system create a conflict of interest where if, let's say, you as the president could do something to help products last longer?
I don't think there's any.
Would that be a conflict of interest, GDP wise?
No, because
so if you were to sell half as many automobiles,
yes,
or your country sold half as many automobiles, that would not be a threat to your country's GDP.
No, because you can double the price.
That's the worst answer I've ever heard. But I mean, it's true. You can just double the price of those cars.
You wanted me to optimize on GDP, and I optimized on GDP.
I asked if it was conflict of interest. If I were to make an automobile last twice as long, without increasing the cost, 1 penny, and I made it last twice as long.
Yes, but GDP is not. GDP is depending on price, not on costs.
Okay, but if I made that automobile without increasing the price, made it last twice as long, would that be a problem for GDP? Would that actually be negative to GDP?
With the same price, you want to say. So if you would make the car that would last twice as long for the same price as you are making the car now.
Yes.
Yes, I don't think that would be a problem to GDP. There could be, because there would be other services that you can charge more because you would have lower amortization on this service.
Well, would people be willing to spend themselves in debt that they can barely afford if they do not need to? Like housing, cars, gas,
Yes,
energy.
yes. I
People,
argue
people are
that
just as
the
willing to
people
spend
don't
themselves
need
into
what they
debt.
buy. They don't need what they buy. And they go and buy more expensive things, not because they need to, but because um, they are convinced that this will help with their status and that will help with their quality of life and similar. And that is the
I
easy
think
way
you're
out.
using a
And
minority to judge the majority with that one.
no, no, no. I'm sure that all neuroscience would confirm what I'm claiming.
I completely disagree with that. There's lots of people that can just barely get by, and they're not trying to go out and get more debt simply to, have a better anything.
I can't agree with you because I was part of the studies and I'm still part of neuroscience studies. And a lot of people that have really have huge problem getting by, and they live paycheck to paycheck, and they get in they take daytime loans. I don't I'm sure you're aware of
A
um,
daytime loan? You're in London, aren't you?
yes. So
Okay. Sorry, I
they would
heard of a
have they would
daytime
take
loan.
a small amount just until their Friday's paycheck. In UK, the lowest workers are still paid every Friday.
Yes.
They would pay. They would on Tuesday. They would take loan to repay it on Friday, for example.
Okay.
And
They
most
have those here. Paycheck advance is what they call them here.
yes, okay.
Yeah.
And when we checked, because I was doing due diligence on these people, they would have too expensive phones. They would have way too expensive cars. They would have they would spend a lot of time on the food that they waste. They would have different clothes that are more expensive than mine clothes, even if I'm not living Friday to Friday. And they would also take loan for short holidays. And they would have their internet would not be the cheapest. They would still have, let's say, they could lower the internet bill. They would waste a lot of different things like food, and there is huge way for improvement, but that would mean self-control. And this is why, of course, there are some people that are optimized to the max and that they really take care of their expenses and they are fully optimized and they still have a problem. However, all these people that we monitored, they like 90% of them had room to improve.
But who was the group that you monitored? Was it people that go to these paycheck advance places or paid
Yes,
day advance?
yes,
Well, I mean, I think you're picking from a group that's already on the bottom of the barrel when you go to those places. If you were
yes.
to let's just say if you were to open it up and all the
But
people who
but
are working
but if
for hourly wages.
they could go without these loans easily, even if there's like 40% interest of them on these loans. They could go without these loans with just a bit of self-control.
Yeah, I agree, but I do think the study would be flawed saying that it only picks from the people who go to the paycheck or payday advances because most people wouldn't want to go there unless like I think the only time I've ever been to anything like that was when I'm just broke and desperate and had no other choice, not because I wanted a new
Yes,
pair
yes,
of
but
shoes.
the people that do
But there
not
are a
go
lot of people
there
that do that.
have similar problems. Their internet is too expensive. They have
Yeah.
mobile phone that is too expensive and they pay mobile phone in installments instead of buying it right. And they have a car that is probably $10,000 instead of $5,000 car, and so on. There are so many things that of course, there are people that are doing everything they can and they are still not making it. But 90% of the people that have financial problem have basically
Uh, Wouldn't say
problems.
90%. I would say you're looking at 90% of people live paycheck to paycheck, and it has nothing to do with their management of their finances.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
there's a lot of people.
can't
If
agree
you
with
say
that.
90% of the people who have financial problems that go to paycheck advances,
No, no,
yeah,
no.
I'd say a lot of them are just irresponsible.
I'm
I
claiming
agree.
that 90% of the people that are living paycheck to paycheck could save some money by optimizing their spending.
I'm sure they could save some money, yes,
Yeah.
but would that make as great a difference as changing the financial system itself? No.
Yeah, but
I
even
believe
if you
that
change,
in the methods that I am trying to explain as far as the hour is concerned, that the average person, I don't mean the exception to the rule, I mean the average person
Mhm.
could pay off their home within a decade as opposed to 3 decades. The average person, by the time they're in their 30s, have a home fully paid off. That is what I believe about this system and the changes that it would bring about. That it would actually curb housing prices to that point. It would actually
Okay,
curb the
but
expectation with that to that
existing
point.
system, existing system could do the same. So
Uh,
why
how,
do you need a new system?
our existing system is not going to do the same because you look at the value of a house, it's all based on market, and it increases simply because someone else paid more. If someone buys a house next to me at double the price, which would be insanely irresponsible. But if someone irresponsibly buys a house next to me at double the price, well, guess what? The cost of my house just went up. That's the current market value in the system that our market value system for housing does. So if you go into a neighborhood, you just buy a bunch of houses. Well, guess what? You can buy them all really expensive and basically jack up the price of the rest of the houses. Let's say you already own 100 houses in a neighborhood with 200 houses. Well, you just go buy another 10, 15 houses, you jack up the price of the houses anymore, you turn around, you sell your other 100.
Yeah, but only if
You
there's an
literally have a
influx
system that
of
is
people in this
valuing
city.
something.
This
Sorry,
is
go ahead.
only works until there's an influx of people in that city. When
I
it
mean, this would work.
stops,
It would still work. It would still show the true
no.
cost.
If people would be leaving the city, the prices would drop for sure.
I mean, where are people going to go?
Yeah.
They're going to go to another city.
Yes.
It just doesn't work.
It
The
works.
idea that argument has been around for a long while, and it's basically putting blame on people that, oh, they should move somewhere else, as if that's going to help the situation, but
Yes.
it really doesn't.
It does. If you have,
When does that work to help lower the cost of housing that's actually going to dramatically help people, that we have to have mass exodus from a city, that we cannot find a fair price for housing, that we have to mass exodus from cities in order to find fair pricing?
yes, it's
That's
that
not
simple.
something that's realistically possible. That's not
Yeah,
something
but
that's
what will happen? What will
going
happen in your system where you will have uh, predetermined prices of house?
no,
And
it would be a predetermined price of a house.
yes,
It would show the true cost of a house.
yeah,
So the true
okay.
cost of the house would be listed next to the price.
Let's say that it would be predetermined price. That would
But that's not what my system is designed to do.
yeah, but even if there would be a cost of the price, and you said that you should separate the property and the house, the building. I I I
Yes.
I
Yes,
checked.
there's actually one of those rules, 7.2, I would actually adjust. I don't know if
Yes.
you have the rules there. 7.2, I would definitely change that rule the way it is.
Yeah. Okay. But let's say that there is a fixed price. Who would be entitled to this house?
Anyone wanted to buy it.
No, because there is a shortage of houses. So there should be, there will be, in the second instance, there will be, how to say, the least who can get this price, this house at that price. That is what
But
happened.
we went over earlier just how easy the market is to control. So you're going back to market or supply and demand. And me, let's just say if I am a, quadrillionaire and I have tons of money, I could buy out your entire city. I
Yes.
could buy out enough of the houses to control the market in the city and not even put them up for sale and just hold on to them until I can double or triple the price of the houses that are going up for sale.
Yeah, but then
It's easy to
2008
control
happens.
the supply
Then
and demand.
2008 happens and prices go down. But with your system, because there will be more people than houses available, there will have to be a priority system. And then you will have another disqualifying factor. And then that believes that people that are well connected will get really cheap houses, and people that are not well connected, they will just tell them there's no houses for you.
Well, with this system, one, it would show the true cost. So if the
Okay,
price did go up,
I agree with the true cost.
It went up. If the price went up above the cost, it would go up, but people would know what the true starting price was, which would not change. It would not change just because there's a lot of people buying. So now we're going to have the initial cost
and you can
goes up. No, it wouldn't change. It would still stay the same.
and you can also
but it would say that the actual cost before profit would still stay the same. The second part of it, the second aspect of it that would change right now in our country, here in the United States, everywhere they're building houses, they're not building houses for the average man. They are not building houses based off of a single family income. They're building houses based off of double family income. They're not building houses that are affordable for a person to go out and buy one unless you and your husband or wife or whatever are both working a job, or you just have a really good job to begin with. They're not building those houses. They might be building apartments that you can barely afford.
Why would you build these houses if you have no initiative? If you can sell higher, why would you build cheaper houses? Tell me that.
Well, all right. Let me ask you this. If you could live in a city where the crime rate is extremely high, but you're filthy rich.
Yes.
Or you could live in a city where there's a low crime rate, people live comfortably, and you're moderately rich. Are you okay with living in that city but being filthy rich that's completely full of crime? It's completely full of poverty and despair. Are you okay with being the man that like influenced that and helped become a part of that? Or would you rather be the man that lived in a city where people were comfortable and didn't have to rob each other and kill each other, and there wasn't death and despair in the streets? Which are you comfortable with? Because honestly, people don't have the mindset to understand what's really going on. People have this, it's only me and only my interaction with the direct person I'm interacting with, and that's it. They don't want to see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is that, you know, all of us together, whether it's one big company or a bunch of small companies, when we're exploiting one another, this is the system we're creating. If you want to get filthy rich and you're doing it at the expense of everyone around you, well, the city that you're creating is the city you're creating. What you're doing in the world is creating the world that you live in. Is that really the world you want to live in? Do you really want to live in a world where everyone is underwater as far as their debt goes? They're barely able to get by. Is that the world that you want to be in?
It's for me, if I'm extremely rich, I can also get an army and clean the city of all the field. So that is extremely important.
So you want to get enough money to where you can buy enough people to kill off everyone else? I mean, it's pretty dark.
That's part of the nature.
That's pretty dark. But honestly,
but that is how it works.
Well, I guess to that point, I would actually have to bring up, why should we as a society allow that? Why should we as a society? Because like you, let's say you want to get that rich, where you own all the land and you own everything. Well, the only way you can own it is if we help you defend it. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't care who you are. You're gonna have a hard time defending an area bigger than your reach, right?
Yes, agree.
So how are you going to claim hold over an entire city if the people of that city do not help you? And why should we help you if your intent is to, of course, get rich enough to build an army and clean up those who become filth later on?
No, I agree with you. That's no problem.
It's there's I guess there's a big part of it is, do you or do people actually care about anyone other than themselves? That would be one big part of it. Do we have that concept? And I do believe that the hour
I
is
can't
designed to bring
agree
it out.
where my problem, I'm all for empathy and all this stuff, but the problem is that empathy does not help improve the system. The system as it is, if we would have smart people running it, would be very efficient and would benefit everyone. And the proof is that since the Second World War and up until 70s, the
I
same
was gonna
system
look
that
that
we are
myself.
running. Excuse me.
Sorry, go ahead. I
Yeah,
was actually going to bring up that time period myself.
yeah. So at that time, the system was extremely efficient, and people could afford a house in US. So with one paycheck for 5 years, you could pay off your house. And I do believe that this was the same system that is running now, and we just need, so the current system would need a bit of different players inside. And
Well, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, and I don't think we need a new system, because this system proved to be extremely efficient, and it helped improve the quality of life to so many Americans in this, let's say, golden era of this system. However, since the late 70s, the system had experienced a lot of problems, and it all looks like the system is in demise. I do believe that the biggest problem of existing system is that it has been taken over by people that do not have knowledge or moral superiority needed for this system to function as it is at its best.
Oh, I was going to say that same time period. There's two different aspects of things that were really going on there. After World War II, for one thing, a lot of unions in the United States had come about and got stronger and stronger. And these people fought for, of course, higher pay, better work practices, working conditions, so on and so forth. And that has a lot to do with that time period. People were actually getting higher pay rates, and a lot of that had to do with unions that were fighting these companies to get better pay rates and standards of living. You can see that right around 1980, there's this huge dramatic shift, and you can see almost any chart that shows that the increase in profits for companies versus the increase in pay for people dramatically changed right there. Basically, the pay for the average person stagnated while the profits shot up, and that happened right around 80 on most of these charts. The other aspect of why, well, especially here in America, why things went so well for us would be our dollar. After World War II, the Bretton Woods Agreement, the United States dollar became the international traded dollar currency in the world, which gave us, enormous buying power and, dealing power with other countries. So we were able to get mass amounts of product for very little money. Very good deals for us. Didn't matter as good deals for everybody else, but we were able to get good deals. So between those two factors here in the United States, I'm sure of a lot of other countries, we had a lot of good years for people in those countries to be able to buy things very cheaply and to have all these things. Of course, that's changing nowadays. One, like I said, back in 80, if you look at any of these charts, you can see that in right around 80, the profits for companies just started skyrocketing, whereas the pay rates for people just slowly increased if they increased at all. And of course, our dollar isn't quite as powerful as it had been then. The entire financial way that we've kept it afloat in the world market has changed. With the Bretton Woods Agreement, people invested, or countries invested gold for the United States dollar. And of course, that ended in Vietnam, and now it's has to do a lot with the petrodollar, basically the selling of oil worldwide, and that's has a lot to do with how we're keeping the dollar valuable, which would go back to one of those conflict of interests where how are we going to get away from oil if we're using that to keep our dollar valuable? That would be another one of those major conflict of interest. And to the bigger question as to whether or not our system is, encouraging bad behavior. Well, if you look at the petrodollar, then absolutely yes. Our system is encouraging bad behavior. Our system does not want to get away from big oil. Like our system hasn't wanted to get away from big oil because it basically keeps our system valuable. Exactly all the details of it, I'm not an expert in that field, but just to know that our countries, or our country, the United States itself, has investments where other countries selling oil sell it in US dollars to keep the dollar valuable. Well, why would you want to get away from oil? Why would you want to stop using it? You wouldn't. That's a simple fact. It's
Can I
not.
can I
Anything.
can I bring you into 2023?
Sure.
The theory of petrodollar is really in the 80s. However, the biggest asset right now that US has and that helps US dollar dominate is information technology. US still has superiority in microchips production and in information technology, cloud services, and similar. And these are more valuable than any oil. And the clear indication of that is that the most valuable company is Apple, not Texas Oil or whichever oil companies that were the most valuable companies in the 80s, if we go a couple of decades back. So judging that petrol oil or petrodollar is why your dollar is strong is a huge undermining of all your workers, all your skills, all the technologies that you have developed. So all intellectual property rights and similar are things that are keeping your dollar so strong right now. And I don't think that that this will change in the near future, because even if everyone is copying US and trying to get all intellectual property for free, it will need at least 10 to 15 years to jump on the same, let's say, to come to the same level. If the US would stop the research and development today. So this myth of petrodollar and international exchange currency is so important is not so important, because before US dollar, there was a British pound that was international exchange currency. And even if British pound is not the exchange currency #1 in the world for probably 40 to 50 years now, maybe even 70, pound is still very strong and English economy is still well off. And it is because of the trade. And if you go to, before that, it was probably French franc that somehow melted in euro. And euro still has some advantages over our other currencies. And I don't think this oversimplification of monetary system is wise or help develop better system. And I would also like to stress that US is the #1 economy in the world, and it has an internal market that is so vast, or the biggest in the world, that even without outside partners, US would still be important, especially for anyone that would like to sell something to the US. They would need to, or they would need to accept US dollars. So only if there could be a bottleneck that would directly influence US economy, for example, the metals that needed for batteries right now, that could be a bottleneck for next 4 to 5 years. But mines for all the things that you need for batteries are already developing in US and also in Canada. So there, I don't think there will be a huge bottlenecks in the next 4 to 5 years, because everyone anticipates that US could be self-sufficient if someone would cut the supply from the outside. So all this monetary or envisioning US dollar as the evil monetary system, I don't think this is correct point of view, or that is fully justifiable. Of course, there are some mistakes in monetary policy of US dollar, but they're in every monetary policy, these are problems, are similar problems. So I don't believe workers have huge disadvantages because of the dollar. I do believe that they had huge advantages in the past because the dollar was so strong. So when they traveled abroad, they could afford much more than they could at home. But right now, this is somehow not the case anymore. But the internal market is still so strong that I don't see any problem for monetary policy.
Well, when it comes to our dollar, like I said, it doesn't restrict anything. It doesn't prevent greed. It doesn't prevent people from being exploited in any way. And what you end up with is a system that's not far off from slavery. And in this way, it's just an economic chain. It's not a
But
chain
what
of
has
you have to
what
work for me
has
and do what I
slavery
say.
to
It's
do?
a chain of wait. I gave you a few minutes there. I didn't say anything for like 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. What we have is an economic system where people are economically chained. We are in debt so far. You have no choice but to become in debt. If you want to move out of your parents' house, or just if you even you're not allowed to live in your parents' house and you have to find a place to live, you're going to be up to your eyeballs in what you need to pay someone. The cost of housing out here is insane. Just to have a room, just to have a room in someone's house is going to cost you at least $1,000 a month, and that's probably around a minimum. So yes, you're starting off with a chain around you. You're going to have that chain around you your entire life, that you're going to have to be paying to this person or another. And why? Because there's no way to distinguish what is real, what is a fair price. And it honestly, if you guys have, or you or anyone else that's listening has any sort of, I don't know, desire to not have a fair price offered to your customers, I would ask, can you say that to your customer? Can you look your customer in the eye and say, I don't want you to know what a fair price is for this product. I don't want you to be treated fairly. I do not want to treat you fairly at all. I want to take you for everything that I can. If you would prefer to live that way, then yeah, you don't want anything to do with what it is that I'm trying to do with the Foundation of a New World. If you can look your customers in the eye and say, yes, I'm offering you a fair price, then the Foundation of a New World wouldn't, the monetary system that is designed wouldn't be a problem for you. So, I mean, that's really what you have to ask yourself is, are you against offering fair pricing? Are you against showing the truth of what a product costs and not just letting everything fall into the hands of, oh, well, supply and demand? Well, guess what? It's too easy to control. I mean, if you want, you can look up history of people controlling supply and demand. I'm sure you can find it all day long. There's plenty of cases of it. I don't have any off the top of my head or any right here other than the wood example and the diamonds examples I gave you earlier. But I'm sure you can find them all day long where people are just with the money, they control the supply and they control demand. It's just not a good way to price our society when our society can manufacture and produce whatever it is that we want all day long. We can do it with incredible efficiency. So pricing things in that way and allowing them to be priced that way all the time, it just doesn't work. It's not working. You claim that what's going on today, it's our system working. It's our system not working. We're destroying the planet and we can't stop. That's our system not working. That's not a good thing. It's a bad thing. We can't stop destroying our planet. We can't stop consuming and producing, whether it's oil or coal or anything. We can't stop. If we do, our economy's going to die, where people are going to be homeless. Why are people going to be homeless? We bought these houses and we've built them so long ago, yet we still can't afford them. Why? Because someone's hands are so deep in our pockets, we can't get them out.
The biggest challenge is defining the fair price. Who's gonna define the fair price?
Like I said, this system is designed to show the true cost of it. You can charge above that, but it's designed to show the true cost. And in that
But what is the
that's simple design.
Let's assume my consulting hour. What would be the true cost of my consulting hour?
Of your what hour?
Consulting hour, what I charge to my clients.
Under the hour, you could charge up to 3 hours per hour for your time, plus whatever overhead it is that's actually going into it, or any overhead plus any, if you have any materials that actually go into cost materials, all that stuff. So basically, your overhead, the amount of hours that you yourself are putting in. Let's say with the hour, if you only consulted with 10 clients a month, then you would divide your monthly overhead by 10 plus, your hours. If you want your hours in the overhead, fine. If you want to charge 3 hours an hour and say you're still not making a profit, imagine paying yourself $150,000 a year and say, oh, I'm still not making a profit, but I'm making $150,000 a year. You want to make a profit and tell people, hey, I'm making a profit. Well, you're paying yourself $300,000 a year, $400,000 a year. You see what's going on? You still are making money. You're just showing a fair price. You're just showing the true price. If people don't want to pay above that and they say, you know what, I'll take my business elsewhere because someone else is offering a lower price, fine. If you're the only person in town selling your product, whatever it is, your consulting services, and you want to charge a higher price, well, then okay. Under this system, there's nothing stopping you from that. Under this system, the government's duty would be if like you're providing a need, if you're keeping your prices extremely high and your service is something that is absolutely needed by the people, they would come in and create or promote competitors to lower the price. And that's it. And that's the true nature and the true heart of the free market is competition, lowering prices. And in this case, the government, instead of providing welfare and providing housing and food and so on and so forth, their duty would be to help create competition to lower the price closer to the fair price, which would actually be shown in the transaction itself. Whereas now the fair price is not shown, people are exploited. And because of that, we have this system of welfare, which is nothing but socialism, that is on probably every Western nation right now. Every Western nation wanting free medical care, free housing, free food, and so on and so forth, where we're paying for that. It's not a good system. It's not working.
But why would government need to interfere if the market is not working?
With this, its design is if people, let's just say if you buy out every bit of the property you can in a region and you exploit it to where if anyone wants to live in that region, they have to pay your extraordinary prices, whatever they are, your exuberant prices. Their job would be to come in and create a competitor. If one doesn't come up on its own, their job would be to help create or promote a competitor that's going to lower the price to compete with you, which isn't far off from what we have now. We're supposed to be, preventing monopolies, although they're not really doing it. That goes back to what you said about management of our actual existing systems. They're not managing a lot of them properly. But with this, it's pretty clear cut. Instead of providing for the people, you're simply helping to create competition to lower the price.
But would people be able to make money then?
Yeah. Might not be as easy on the basic needs of the people. And that would be a huge difference. Instead of exploiting people for their housing and their energy and whatever, the things they absolutely need just to get by day to day, I don't know, exploit them for a movie ticket. I mean, come on, who's gonna feel bad that you charge $5 for a thing of popcorn at the movies? We know it's high prices. We know you're making a lot of money. Okay, here, have at it. We go to a bar, we go to a tavern, we know that you're charging a lot more than that alcohol is worth just to, if we wanted to buy it alcohol, we go buy it cheap, go home, but we want the experience. So you see that we the people be a lot more willing to spend money frugal or not so frugally for things that are not killing us day to day, as opposed to things that we absolutely need and we can't live without, and it keeps us from actually living our lives.
Then, for example, you would take money from a grocery store owner and put it to in the pocket of the movie theater owner.
No, I would not take money from anyone. I would simply show the true cost of it. Let's just say if I was the government in this situation, I would not be taking money from a grocery store. I would be, if that grocery store, it's, they're exploiting people, they're charging extremely high prices for their food, I would simply create a competitor, which we have a lot of now. I'm sure you find plenty of grocery stores that have competitors that are cheaper than others. Here there would be Publix, which would be one of the more expensive grocery stores, and I could go to Aldi to get a much better price if I choose to. So that isn't really the problem, especially here. Here's really the big problem with housing, healthcare, education, cars, stuff like that. Those are the big ticket items that really keep our heads down.
How will you
But I
how
wouldn't be
will
taking money
you
from them.
how will you guarantee that the government's business won't have dumping price?
They won't have dumping price.
Yes,
What do you mean dumping price?
dumping is that they will go below the expenses.
I mean, that's why you have the system is supposed to show the actual cost.
Yeah, but for example, my costs can be much higher because I don't have economy of scale, and government has a huge economy of scale and has a lower overheads. So they could underprice. That wouldn't be a fair market.
No, it wouldn't. This right here said the government, with the ruling the way it's written, the government would create or promote a competitor, not be a competitor. See the difference there?
But why would you, if they would promote competitor, would that would be interference in a free market?
Okay, but if you are buying out an entire region, you are
Yes.
interfering with the free market just
No.
as much. If you
No,
are
because it's a
a
global
rich, if you're
market.
a rich investor, you have just as much power to dump to control a market. You have just as much power, and that has happened plenty of times. You look at Standard Oil, what they did in this country, the things that you're talking about, they did. That was free market. That was unchecked capitalism at its best. And what they did, they took over the entire industry, and of course, they became Shell and Exxon and Texaco and all the oil companies we know today after the government broke them up. But those types of practices, like literally going into one area, lowering their price beyond a threshold that anyone can compete against, they would go into an area and do that. They would raise their prices in another state while lowering it in the state they're trying to push competitors out. They'd do that for a few months until the competitors went under business, either buy them out or just let them go under business or go out of business. And then
Yeah,
they would
but
take over that
now
whole
you
state. They
have
would do the same thing across
legislation
the
in
country.
place that this is no longer possible because you have an anti-dumping law.
I'm sure they find other ways to do it. You can tell me they don't find
Yeah,
catch
but
22s to get out of taxes or anything else.
okay, but
There's ways to do it.
yeah, but I agree there are ways to do it. But how would you guarantee that your system would not be much worse exploited than the existing system is exploited?
The idea is to show the truth. The entire thing you're talking about dumping. With this system, if dumping was going on, then you would have the price of a house. It would show the cost. Let's just say it's $100,000, just as an example. That's the cost before profit. If they're selling them for $50,000, then like you said, they're just dumping it. They're trying to lower the cost. But with this, the cost is 100, so they're selling it below 100. You could see that
Yes.
it's painfully evident. And in that type of scenario, I mean, the same thing today, you have journalists, you have newspapers, and you have media that's supposedly supposed to help uncover and show this type of corruption to try to help fight against it and take it to court and so on and so forth, which is something that's happened quite often. It's the media that has actually been trying to catch this type of stuff. Nowadays, the media is more politicized onto one of their two sides, but that is historically how it's come about as far as policing the government.
Yes. But the government would have influence over the media as well. So that is you're policing the police there.
Well, if you've actually gone to the website, I don't know if you've looked at the justice system rules. There would be many different rules. I mean, we're talking about trying to address one issue and then bringing up another potential problem. As far as the government is concerned, there's quite a few things that need to be done to really get our governments under control. I don't know if we can really go into all that without getting way off track. But all right, well, fine. Just for one example, as far as governments, right now in our country, money rules when it comes to being elected. If you don't have the money to run a campaign, well, your chances of getting elected are, slim to none. You have to get someone to give you money, which means that you're somehow indebted to that person, right? So one simple thing that you could change to help change the situation would be to take money out of the equation. So for people to run, you have to take away their ability to fund themselves or have other people fund themselves. Basically, an open platform that's paid for whoever is running, whether it's imagine something along the lines of a television station that's airing out the same thing, and everyone gets so much time allotted on that television station, something along those lines, to where you're taking away the individual's pocket, no matter who put money into it, if they had their own money or whatever, you're taking that out of the equation. So that would be one issue as far as what we have nowadays with our governments and how people get elected. There's so many different things as far as our government is concerned that need to change and be changed. With police and the police, I actually have a rule. I don't know if you saw it, but that was one of the rules. The specific names was police and the police, and that's more on police reform and how if you really wanted to police the police, the best way to do that would be to you create a third party that has control of all the recording equipment that the police officers use, so that the defense attorneys and the prosecution of the state have access to that at all times. So the dash cams in a police officer's car, the body cams they wear, and so on and so forth, that would be open to both the prosecution and the defense of any state at any given time. And in that case, the defense lawyers of a state could literally sit there and watch police actions at any given time and see what they really do. That would be an effective way to police the police.
Okay. I'm
Got off track on that one.
I'm really skeptic about implementation. I like the ideas, and I do believe that people would need to have better access to housing and social and medical and all this stuff. But I don't believe it's so easy to implement it. And the biggest problem is that systems are run by people, and people are corrupt, and that's agnostic to the system. So the system cannot lower the corruption of the people. And
I would actually have something specifically to say about that, and that's it's kind of a rollover type mentality. I've heard it a lot. It's like when people say, "Oh, well, it's just greed. You can't get rid of greed. Oh, it's just money. You can't get rid of money. Oh, you can't change anything, so don't do anything." That's kind of the other half of the statement. When you say, "Oh, it's just greed," or "Oh, it's just corruption," the other half of the statement, it's like this feeling that, "Oh, well, you just can't do anything about it, so don't even try." Well, that's completely the opposite. You have to actually try. You have to actually
no,
try to
I'm
find. If you don't try to
100%
find a way, you
on
never
that
will.
with you, that you have to try.
Yeah.
I support you. That is also why I was so looking forward to this interview. And
Okay.
I do admire your ideas and your view of the world. And I do believe that you're a good person because you have such a positive outlook. And I say, you're so optimistic that you can change things, and I'm sure that's a good start. And I do believe that system could be improved and tweaked existing system. I also do believe that there's an opportunity for a new system. So if you continue to develop your system, you might come to a system that will be able to just substitute the existing system. That is a full possibility. And I do believe that your project has some substance in it, and that you have given it a lot of thought. However, I'm not really sure if you could implement it tomorrow if you become the president.
Well, that's what the foundation of New World, the purpose of it is to actually go out and build a small scale city and have the system in it. Basically start the city with the system and to show that it works. And if there's any problems, like you're bringing up, if there are any problems, to find them and find a way to tweak the system itself to address those problems, to work out any imperfections. Like I already know of two things off the top of my head that if I went to the website, I would absolutely change these two wordings for a couple of these rules. So finding any of those things that need to be tweaked and tweaking them to make it a perfect system or somewhere close to that type of idea. and of course prove that it's actually feasible. No one would ever try to, implement this if they didn't see that it actually worked, which of course is part of the purpose of the Foundation of New World, to show that it works.
Okay, how big should the city be or the town be where you will try to implement that?
That's a difficult question. I would say tens of thousands, maybe more. It depends on, one, the amount of funding that would come in, the amount of building, and two, growth beyond the initial city. That would be the true test of it. If the initial city would be built and isn't built in a place where, people are, or a poor enough area of the world that people be willing to take an experimental currency and use it, well, that would be where it would have an opportunity to grow. And of course, that growth would inevitably show whether or not it works or doesn't work.
Would you accept support from US government to do this project?
Support, yes. Control, no. If they were trying to control the thing, I would say no.
Okay.
Support, absolutely.
Okay, so if any of our listeners know about a town that is deserted in US, just type in a comment or give us a contact, and we'll try to procure the live example of the society that Christopher has imagined. So Christopher, please give us some tips or tricks how we could improve the system before we close.
As far as our current system, I would say we would definitely want to address the problems with the GDP measuring system itself. I do believe that it is a huge conflict of interest that encourages us to produce more, whether we want to or not. That until that is addressed and changed, that we as society are going to produce more garbage. We're going to produce things that fail. We are going to produce things that pollute our environment, and we're going to produce them again and again and again, every step of the way, destroying our planet, polluting it, destroying it, whatever you want, for everyday products that we have the technology, and we had the technology 30, 40 years ago to make it last longer. So that, I know that's not something any individual can do, but as far as something we could do, just to take that out of the equation, to take that aspect of our financial system away, would help out quite a bit.
Thank you very much for being my guest tonight. And I'm looking forward to all the comments below the video and below this audio track. And as I said, if you know of a town that Christopher could take over in US, I please write in a comment or DM me, and we'll try to put something together.
Thank you very much.